Hey everyone, welcome to the live stream. I'm Philip Cloud and this is Philip in the Cloud. And today I'm going to talk to you guys about the Ibis 7.0 release. We just released it a few minutes ago. We've got a bunch of awesome new features and just general big improvements to the library. We've got a totally redesigned documentation page. The address is still the same, ibis-project.org. I'll put that in the chat. We're now using Quarto to build it, so we've got a bunch of stuff going on there. And there's really a couple of features for a few of the libraries that people have been, a few of our backends that people have been asking for years, frankly, and we just haven't had the time or the capacity to sort of get it done. But we've gotten a lot of those done this release. And so one of the features that people have been asking for quite a bit is the ability to write Unnest with BigQuery. And to that effect, I wrote a blog post on the Ibis blog about using arrays with BigQuery, and we sort of go through all the features of using arrays with BigQuery. And Unnest is addressed there, but today I'm going to show you a couple of examples of how to use that. And I'm going to pull from a previous blog post that I wrote on doing data analysis with BigQuery CI data. Let me just pull that up to get a link. And that blog post is here. And so let's get started. So I'm going to do interactive import, bring in all the things. I'm going to connect to BigQuery with ibis.connect. Then I'm going to just show some of the tables I've got here. I've got Ibis list, I've got list tables, which is a method on connection. We see we've got analysis, jobs, and workflows. Those are sort of bits in the terminology from using GitHub Actions. And so basically, a workflow is a single GitHub action file, and jobs is the specific job in those workflow files. And so let's look at jobs, because I know jobs has some gnarly array stuff in it here. And we get the interactive repr. It's got a bunch of columns, and we see we've got this kind of gnarly looking steps column that's an array of struct and God knows what else. But we can kind of look at the type. Actually, let's just look at the schema of this table. Okay, so yeah, it's like an array of struct with a bunch of fields. There's some timestamps, etc. You can sort of see, when a step started, when it completed, etc., what the status was of the steps. And previously, it was actually pretty difficult to do anything with this array. But in Ibis 7, I think nearly every or possibly every array API that we have that we have in Ibis is now supported with BigQuery. So if we look at jobs and we look at steps, then we see we've got this column, and now before you basically we weren't able to call this method, so it would just give you an error, but now it works, which is pretty nice. And we're taking advantage of a library called SQLglot, which people should check out, which is sort of a library that lets you transpile SQL from one dialect to another. It's really great. It's made by the people who work at SQL Mesh, and it's a great library. Anyway, so now we've got a nested BigQuery. That's great. Well, what the heck can we do with that? Well, now we've got a struct for every step in every job. So a job may be something like run tests. And so you might have a step that's like check out the repo. And the next step is like install the dependencies. And the next step is run the tests. And so each step in a particular job run is going to be one of these struct fields. So a simple query we might actually do is to say, what was the status of every job? And so we can just pull out status like this, right? And this is unnesting and then pulling the status out. So that's kind of a flat column, right? But if you wanted to see if you wanted BigQuery to say, hey, count up, what are the number of status, tokens? How many of each status token are there? Cool. So we've got a couple that are in progress, which is kind of interesting. Not sure how the data got recorded at that queued. Maybe something was queued for a really long time. And then the vast majority of these step statuses are completed. So that's pretty nice, right? And like this is a single line of Ibis code and probably going to fit in a single line no matter what your editor configuration is. And let's just show what the sequel looks like here to give some comparison. Okay, that's pretty gnarly. And a lot of the complexity here is handling the keeping Unnest semantics equivalent to all of our backends. And this is done almost entirely by the folks over at SQLGlide. They have a kind of a transformation that takes these Unnests and turns them into the equivalent kind of query for the given backend. So that they did a wonderful job and it works great. And so now we have Unnest for BigQuery. Let's look at some other new APIs that we have around taking the difference between two timestamps. So we've got a struct field here. We can look at the type. Okay, we've got struct, and we've got these columns. You can see here we've got let's see, we've got a column called started at right here that has a timestamp with time zone UTC data type. Let's just pull out steps into a variable to make things a little easier to work with. Actually, let's use another API. So let's look at this again. We've got Unnest. We can actually just we can sort of turn this into a table. Like we have a rows of structs, which are sort of similar to a table. But let's just make this into a table properly. We can call lift, and the way to think about that is it sort of pulls up the columns into a table. And this is a little bit easier to work with. We don't have the nesting of the structs. We have everything in a single column. So that's pretty nice. And we can see sort of what was going on here. So then we can say, previously there wasn't actually a way, or sorry, there was a way to get basically the number of seconds between started at and completed at, or completed at started at. But it was pretty difficult. You had to cast each column to an integer and then also know that that would give you back microseconds with BigQuery. And then you had to convert that to seconds or minutes or whatever unit you wanted. So in Ibis 7, there's a new API, experimental, but it's nonetheless there, delta, which takes, which is a method on temporal type values, so timestamps, dates, and times, and it takes as a second argument another temporal type of the same as the first, and then a unit that you want to get for the delta. So we've got completed at, delta, started at, and let's say we wanted to get that in minutes. And so it returns an integer number of minutes between these two timestamps. So let's say job step duration. Looks like I got an error from BigQuery saying, hey, that's not the right spelling. Minutes, minute is the right spelling. Pretty nice. Looks like it's hidden at the other side because of my gigantic terminal. Let's fix that. I named it job step duration. We got another new API called relocate. I can't remember if that landed in 7 or not. Let's say that it did. But basically what relocate allows you to do is move columns around in the existing table without really affecting the location of others. So in this case, I just want to put job step duration at the front. And I think relocate with a single argument will do that. Sweet. Okay, so now some of these jobs were so quick that they can't really be measured in minutes. If we wanted to go down to second, maybe we'd see some stuff there. Let's see, job step duration. Now we're starting to get some, and then we can do something, maybe it's a bit nonsensical, just because the job steps are so widely variable, but we can pluck that column out and we can take the mean. That's pretty nice. Okay, so the average job step duration is 16 seconds. That seems highly suspect in terms of a number that represents a useful central tendency for these jobs. The variability is just all over the the place here. So it's not super informative. Um, that's pretty much it. There's a ton more stuff in the release notes. Let me pull those up. Let's see. We've got the documentation. We've got our release notes here. Pasted that in the chat. And I'll just end by showing the pile of SQL that is coming out of this rather large expression here. So what do we have? We've got 7 lines of Ibis code. And this is probably just going to be a massive pile of SQL. Okay, so we've got a huge amount of cross joins and unnesting and etc., which is really, really not fun to look at. However, this is what it looks like in Ibis. So look forward to seeing what everybody does with the new release, and please check it out. Thanks for tuning in. See everyone next time.